fast. You know, in life you have to be mobile. One of the things that, to me, it comes down to a feeling thing. Look, in some ways I'm kind of a Freudian. I don't give myself labels, but I'm kind of a Freudian in a sense. In at least in the basic concept of Freud, not so much all the particular details some people could argue, but that, about counseling people to try to help people to become healthier, better, improve, moving closer to health, moving people, doing something to move people in the direction of healthy. And so in that sense, I'm a Freudian. Freud's, the particular details you could argue about all day, and we could have debates forever on that. Because some things I don't agree with. But, the overall ideal, I think Freud was good. I think he was good. I don't think he was a bad person. I think the basic, what he was trying to do was right, in the sense of helping people become healthier. Given the limitations of his understanding of things, given the youngness and the youthfulness of the science of psychology at the time, he did the best he could. I'm sure if Freud were alive right now, other than scratching on the top of his coffin. That's like a bad joke somebody came up with. What would he do if he was still alive? He'd be scratching on the top of his coffin. But anyway, all jokes aside, the thing is, Freud would probably come up with new theories and new ways of looking at things. He would have to yield to the new discoveries today. He would say, I've totally revised and totally... some scientists and some philosophers completely revise what they think. Like Wittgenstein, for example. I mean, they talk about the early Wittgenstein and the later Wittgenstein. He totally rejected everything he wrote in the earlier days. And, there are people who are it's almost like when you think of a person who's a follower of Wittgenstein, it depends on which one. The ones of the later Wittgenstein or the early Wittgenstein. It's like almost as if they were two complete opposing camps, and yet they're following the same person. The thing is that with Freud's ideal was to try to make things better. And given what the limitations, yes, he did fairly well. And some people say he never cured any of his patients. Well, I don't know how true that is. I think that he was probably helpful to a lot of people. And even if he didn't directly help anybody, which I think I'm skeptical that that's the case. I think he did help people. The thing is that he created spin-offs. Even people who completely thought, no, Freud is wrong, but they had to start with what Freud said, look at it, examine it, and move from that. That's how science works. Somebody could say, well, the Earth is the center of the universe. You may have a scientist who says that and even give a scientific explanation. But what's more important isn't the conclusion, but the explanation. And you can examine it, and you can test it. And from that comes an improvement. And you can show where that's wrong or whether, and here's what's right, and here's my explanation as to why this is better than that. Without that earlier thing, you wouldn't get to this later thing. People don't understand that about science. They don't understand that about a lot of things. When you look at early days of religion and the early days of a lot of thinking and the way people looked at the world, we could say, well, people back then were stupid. No, people were smart, really. They understood the world given the limitations of what they understand. And we understand the world as we see it now, given the limitations of what we have right now. We have limitations. And, 100 years from now, people 100 years from now will still have limits. Their knowledge won't be complete. And people 1,000 years from now, their knowledge won't be complete. And people 100 million, billion years, if there are people that far, they're still going to have limits. There are always going to be limits. You're never going to have a complete, total, absolute picture. And you have to realize that. But given the limitations, we're as good as we can be right now. We know as much as we can know right now. And we're learning more. And we see errors and mistakes, and we make revisions, and that's what we do. So I don't totally reject everything Freud said. I don't reject the basic ideal of Freud. I don't reject the basic ideal. This is an interesting book, by the way, The Future of an Illusion. Because, for people who are into religious stuff, this is about religion. The future of an illusion. I actually haven't read this all the way through. I've kind of read some of it. I actually have a bookmark right about it, page whatever. I'm still actually in the beginning. There's a very long introduction to this thing. And I'm reading that, so I'm going to finish reading. But I know it's about religion, the future of an illusion. I have a lot of interesting books. I'm not going to go into all my other books, but I have this book, which I think I bought this. I believe I bought this book right here. Blood Wedding. Bodas de Sangre. From Federico Garcia Lorca. I bought this in Granada. I actually bought it in Granada, Spain. It's a book, and it's entirely in Spanish. I won't read it, but it's Federico Garcia Lorca. I always like to say that. I love to just say, have those words roll off my tongue. Federico Garcia Lorca. But that's the thing, that Freud wasn't such a bad guy. Again, I don't agree with everything he says. But you have to read Freud, and I've read quite a bit of Freud. I've actually read a lot of his stuff. And I think it was just a wonderful thing for me to, when I went to England back in 2009, to go to Freud's house. Of course he wasn't there. He died in 1939, but to go to Freud's house, that was kind of cool. That was the last place he lived in England. He died in England, in London. But, you could feel those Freudian vibrations in the air. Just be a little bit crazy. So that's all I have to say about that. Let me stop, because maybe I might put this up on YouTube. Who knows?